A lot of people think, I just need to, if I'm allowed to say this word, suck up to your boss. First and foremost, bosses don't like it. And secondly, it doesn't help much.
Don't suck up to your boss, which we are taught, in the corporate world sometimes that's what you have to do to get to where you need to be.
My advice to everybody, don't play politics. Bad politics will be good for you until they're no longer good for you.
How do you actually win influence from people who don't actually report to you?
It's a brilliant question, one of the most important when it comes to leadership. Which is the group of people that is most difficult for you to influence? It's your peers. And as you actually move through the different hierarchies, those are also the most influential people. Because it's not a single person, right, who then decides on your promotion. What counts most is actually the people that are ranked equally, but you found a way to stand out.
Everyone wants to get promoted. Everyone wants to get a salary increase. How do you then stand out among your peers who are also competing for the same things as you are? I'm Nicole Lee, and welcome to You Never Know, where we talk about life, career, finance, and health with visionary people who have taken the unconventional road and embraced the unknowns. If this episode resonates with you, I would love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it today. Are you ready? Let's go. Behind many senior leaders who've made it to the top of the corporate world lies a story that few people ever get to hear. A story of managing and navigating large, complex matrix organizations, managing senior peers, and learning the unwritten rules of influence even when it's without authority. Today's guest has spent nearly 4 decades doing exactly that across senior positions at UBS, ABN AMRO, and Credit Suisse, to leading global private banking for South Asia at HSBC, and now as senior advisor and group head for Southeast Asia at Nomura International Wealth Management. In this episode, we'll unpack some of the most important things you need to know about how to succeed and rise to the top of global financial institutions, what it takes to stay there, and the biggest lessons he's learned about life and leadership as a senior banking leader. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Philip Kunz to You Never Know. Welcome to the show, Philip.
Thank you, Nicole. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Philip. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because now I get to ask you all the things I didn't dare to ask you and many senior leaders when we were working together at the bank. So really grateful that you're taking the hot seat today, Philip. So Philip, I'm going to start with a blunt statement. Many people believe that many senior management may not have gotten to where they are by being nice. So Philip, my first question is it true that you have to stop being nice to make it to the top of a bank?
Absolutely not, Nicole. On the contrary, actually. Starting off with a simple saying, right? Smile and the world will smile back at you. I actually believe the further that your career takes you, actually the kinder you should be. Basically giving back to the people who helped you get to the top. And in my own career, my own life, actually it's based on very simple values that were already passed on to me as a young child from my own parents. Most importantly, respect every single individual for being a human being. No matter whether this person was fortunate to become a chairman, a CEO, or making our teas. They're all individuals where life takes all kinds of different turns. And that doesn't make it a better or a worse person. Now, of course, you are fully aware of the audience that you are engaging with. I'm guessing a wrong conversation with a boss would have a different impact on my career than having a casual chat in the pantry with a tea lady. So, no, I don't believe in that. Kindness brings you a very, very long way. Treat people the way that you like to be treated. And by the way, you never know how things change, right? So you're not nice, and all of a sudden that person that you were not nice to is your boss. Then how?
Yes.
So for me, at the end of the day, Nicole, it actually is all about being authentic, being genuine, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to look at other leaders, look at other individuals, look at the good aspects of it, but don't try to copy them. because a copy is just a copy, right?
Interesting.
And nobody really likes copies. They prefer the original. So I think what most probably did carry me, besides the passion that I have for what we do, is exactly the opposite. Be kind. Now, being kind doesn't mean being soft. What people are looking for is fairness, being objective in your views, be compassionate, give them time to express themselves, but also where needed, have a tough conversation. So being kind doesn't mean soft, right?
Yeah, I think people have that misconception, right? That being kind equates to being soft, and therefore they think that many senior management have to be unkind, right? Because they are firm. Many senior management are firm, right? Do you think that's possibly why people have that misconception?
I guess there are so many things that come into this, right? Amongst others, your God-given looks. Many people say, Philip, you look very stern. That I can't change. That's what I was given, right?
Yeah.
But being aware of that and having taken that feedback, right? Smile. Soften the mannerism of speech, and without going out around in circles, never stop being nice. Whether that's in your private life or in business, treat people the way that you want to be treated. And I think you'll find the right answer then.
Yeah. So Philip, let's take 10 steps back, right? And let's unpack some of the things that you said and start with how to master the art of navigating complex matrix organizations, right? Because you've worked at some of the world's biggest banks, right? You know how complex they are. You don't just have one boss. You have 10 different bosses. You have a hard line reporting, dotted line reporting, regional boss, global boss, functional boss, and the list goes on, right? How do you actually advise someone on how to more successfully navigate a complex global matrix organization?
So again, it actually starts with you understanding the complexity. Who is responsible for what, who drives what, who and where are the decision makers. People often refer to this, I think wrongly, to politics, right? My advice to everybody, don't play politics. Genuinely, authentic, be yourself, but be aware of what is happening there, right? Be aware of your audience, who you're speaking with, who are you engaging with. And again, it has to be across all levels. A lot of people think, I just need to, if I'm allowed to say this word, suck up to your boss.
Yeah.
First and foremost, bosses don't like it. And secondly, it doesn't help much, right? So
Interesting.
It has to be based on merits, right, as to how you foster your career. But simple learnings that I had very, very early in my life, and maybe there were two main pieces of influence there. So firstly, it started off with a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Maybe the most important piece I ever read in my whole life. And I've read lots and lots and lots of stuff. But the biggest credit most probably has to go to my dear mum. She has no clue of banking, finance, business or anything. The only piece of advice, be a British gentleman and a Swiss businessman, and you'll be fine.
She told you that?
Yes. Obviously, she was British.
Okay.
I was born in England at a very tender age, then moved to Switzerland and went through all my education there. So that's where that British angle comes from.
I see.
And my dad being Swiss, right, and reasonably successful with lots and ups and downs as a businessman, she felt that was the best piece of advice she could give me.
Oh, wow. Be a British gentleman and a Swiss businessman. That's very interesting. I just wanted to go back to something else you said earlier, which was don't suck up to your boss, which we are taught, in the corporate world sometimes that's what you have to do to get to where you need to be. And you said that bosses don't really like that. Can you tell us more?
Look, you see through, right, the agenda. If somebody comes to you and is overly nice and complimentary, and look, everybody likes compliments. Let's not kid ourselves, right?
Yes.
But there's a limit to it, a natural limit to it.
Yeah.
Again, nothing wrong being nice, right? You can be nice to your boss as well, right?
Yes.
But there's a difference of being nice, respectful, than sucking up to. So no, bosses don't like that.
Right.
Bosses actually, leaders may be the better word, right, do like to have genuine conversations based on mutual interest and respect.
Right.
In the leadership position, how can I help you? How can I help you foster your career? What guidance can I give you? What teachings do we have? So no, we don't like it.
Okay.
We don't like it.
Let's talk about all the matrix reporting lines and the different, structures that happen in this whole web, of structures in banks. Is it important to understand all the different intricacies and interdependencies between different people and different departments?
It definitely helps, Nicole, right? If you actually understand it. But again, understanding and playing to it is something completely different. And one thing I pride myself of, I never did, right? Everything that you do, again, has to be authentic, has to be honest. Yes, you need to show your success, right? You all have KPIs and targets and budgets and all those lovely words.
Yes.
They themselves don't help you necessarily to navigate in isolation, but they do then put you in a different light, right? Oh, he's been successful at that. Let's give him some time. Let a conversation take place. I can understand him better and not. Some of the organizations I worked for are hugely complex, massively large, right?
Yes.
And you see lots and lots of things where you just sit there and scratch your head. And because a lot of senior leaders actually don't do this very well. The worst that you actually get to see when they then carry out their differences in public in front of their own people.
Yes.
It's most probably about the worst thing that you can do. And that doesn't mean that you need to agree with everybody and everything that is being said. Right?
Yeah.
But it's then also a question on how do you bring your views forward, your ideas, respectful that there might be others. And especially in leadership, understanding you're not always the smartest person in the room. There was once somebody who said to me, Philip, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. It is complex, and I will not belittle it, right? But everybody has to find their own style. Understanding and having the willingness to understand where other people might be coming from. That there is room for different views, different thoughts. But again, also there, it doesn't mean whether as an employee or as a leader that you need to kowtow and just agree with what everything is being discussed. At the end of the day, the best way to navigate is actually create your own presence, your own aura based on confidence, not cockiness, but self-confidence, that you know what you are talking about, you have prepared. Something also I find very, very important when you want to navigate these complexities, have the respect to prepare. And you and I, Nicole, we've been in meetings, there are 200 pages of presentations, and nobody's read them. It used to irritate me tremendously because I actually think it's disrespectful to the people who actually prepared it.
I see. Yeah, no, I think what struck out from what you said was originality. So not actually copying someone else's leadership style or aura, but actually knowing yourself enough so that you develop your own aura and then be respected for that as well. That's actually really important. I don't think many people realize that because everyone's always trying to copy someone else, right? Philip, in the context of matrix organizations, one of the hardest things that I've had to face and learn when I was at the bank was getting things done with people across different seniority when they don't actually report to me. So my question is, how do you actually win influence from people who don't actually report to you?
It's a brilliant question, and most probably one of the most important when it comes to leadership, right? How to influence people in the absence of reporting line.
Yeah.
I'm slightly naughty, right? If you have a reporting line to me, I could coerce you in doing stuff, right?
Yes.
You're afraid I'm going to dock your bonus or goodness knows what. The real art is actually exactly what you said in your question is, right? How to influence in the absence of. And maybe that is also a lesson that I was very privileged to learn early in my career. And also in the advice that I give, which is the group of people that is most difficult for you to influence. So actually it's your peers. And as you actually move through the different hierarchies, those are also the most influential people. Because it's not a single person, right, who then decides on your promotion. It's actually very often a forum of individuals who have sought feedback. And if done well, it's a 360. And so, in my opinion, what counts most is actually the people that are ranked equally, but you found a way to stand out. Now, leadership is far more than just that, right? Being able to convince people, logic, rational, rather than just enforcing what you think is the right way. And you can imagine, right? It's even in families, you assume you have a sister, right? How to convince her to follow what you want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
Yeah.
So it's really then putting forward your point of view that is compelling, that is logic. And people actually, that makes sense. I actually want to follow that.
So I'm thinking back of my times at the bank, and one thing you said was, and to clarify, you're saying that one of the most important groups of people in a large organization to win influence over is actually your peers, not your boss. Okay, so let me paint a scenario, right? A real scenario, for people. So if in banks especially, in high-performing organizations, there are a lot of ambitious people, right? Everyone wants to get promoted. Everyone wants to get a salary increase. How do you then stand out among your peers who are also competing for the same things as you are?
It is a competitive world, right?
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves.
Yes.
Very early in my life,
Yeah.
I also had an experience that taught me these lessons.
Okay.
And some people know this, some people don't. I actually was an absolute crazy football player. And so ordinarily high performing, right?
Yeah.
Normally there are 22 people to a squad, but only 11 can start.
Yes.
The 11 need to be one unit when you start the game, right?
Yeah.
But how do you actually become one of the 11 who can start? How to get along with, even if you don't like them. And invariably in a group of 22, there's one or the other that you will not find much friendship. But then finding that common cause. But yes, to get the attention of my coach, my trainer, right? You need to show that you deserve to be in that 11. So you put in the efforts in training, week in, week out. And it's very similar in business as well, right? The consistency of your contribution to a task, to a goal.
Yeah.
I think that in itself is the most important part of being noticed.
Right.
But again, what we just spoke about earlier, that alone will also not bring you the promotion, right? What that actually does, it puts you in the circle of contenders. You have earned the right to be evaluated for the next stop. But it doesn't give you the guarantee. So it's actually a combination of, and what, especially when they send for promotions to leadership roles, right? How does he influence others? How is he viewed and valued by others? Do they respect him? Do they actually think he's fair, he's logic? But also he contributes. You do have some amongst us who think they can just automatically float to the top by being part of it, and right? Oh, the collective will carry me.
Yeah.
Everybody has to contribute consistently, so especially in that environment that you mentioned, right? High-performing banking environment.
Yes.
And there are many of us out there with similar career hopes and aspirations.
Yes.
And every step, there are lesser and lesser positions available, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I was, and I guess still am, a very ambitious individual. But the one advice that I would have there, qualify on your own merits and don't do it to the detriment of others. And you see a lot of that as well, right? Where people actually will try to put themselves in a better light by talking bad about their competitors, their peers, and that will bring you absolutely nowhere.
So Philip, let's talk about promotions and pay. How does someone increase their chances to get promoted or to get a pay increase?
Again, first on my own reflection, I never said no to a promotion and I never said no to a pay increase or a fancy bonus, just to be fair and transparent. But I have also over the years developed my own views on this. The one thing that I don't have is pity for the bankers. We all are paid extremely well. And sometimes, in particular, come year end, we tend to forget that, right? And you see this on all levels. And then they complain because they only get 3 months instead of 4 months. And And if you actually look at the sums, Nicole, sometimes that 3 to 4 months, even for an assistant, is more than an annual pay of a nurse, a teacher, or other professions that are very, very important out there, right? And as long as I see the sports cars leaving the parking lots around the banks, I don't think we need to be too worried about the level of pay that they have. But again, there's nothing wrong in being ambitious. There's nothing wrong in wanting to earn more. I guess as you age and as you enjoy, advancing in your career, those two elements do become less and less important. And I do remember situations where I did get to the next step, which I was fighting for and I was putting in all efforts. Then you get it. Nothing changes. And you ask yourself, well, why was this so important to me? Now, promotions, ranks, titles, there's something in their own world by itself, right? So very often I found that actually titles are most important internally. An MD calls a support function, they pick up the phone straight away and, it's Mr. Kunz calling, right? I better attend to. If you are then, let's say, of a lower rank, they let it ring 10, 15 times. It's only this AD, can't be important. So there are dynamics around this that do help you. Is it correct? Is it right? Most probably not. Now, how to go about this fairly and how to optimize your chances. So, because I think that was the basis of the question, right?
Yes.
Again, it always has to be based on merits and your deliverables, consistently so. But as we have this wonderful saying, right, it's not just the destination that counts, it's also the journey. And in this context, how did I make my numbers? And it is quite easy in our business, right, to put on maximum effort and influence to actually reach certain sales numbers, etc., etc. And maybe disregarding wrongly the actual need of a client, selling for the sake of. And that's the worst. And there had been periods throughout this long career, right, where we've observed that not everybody adhered to that. And not surprising, in response, regulators then start reacting quite heavily to protect their consumers. So the way that you get to your numbers is equally important. And it starts off with doing the right thing because it is the right thing all the time, even when nobody's watching. And these things are then that come out during these 360s, your peer review, right? Because they see, they observe, right? No wonder this guy is pushing, structured products like hotcakes to grandparents, which we all know is completely wrong. I think you and I spent a lot of time together, right, in fine-tuning a fair and customer-friendly investment framework. But not everybody adheres to it and thinks by taking shortcuts. And I think it over the years has also influenced the way that the public at large started to view bankers. And it's not always the friendliest of reputation that we actually have out there. And I personally feel it was self-inflicted.
Interesting.
So again, nothing wrong in wanting to get a promotion, nothing wrong in being ambitious and wanting to earn more money, optimizing your rice bowl. But at all times, make sure you do it the right way, you do it fair, customer-centric, that you don't do the sale for the sake of it, bear your customer, but also your peers, your colleagues in mind.
So all these things actually matter in addition to your performance because, like you say, the slots are getting fewer and fewer. And so all these things play a part and they actually matter, right? Is it also a different set of criterion and soft kind of factors for different people at different ranks? The
depth of your capabilities, the breadth of it, with every step should become broad. It's a very interesting question as well, right? Is an in-role promotion the right thing? Or does a promotion have to come with bigger responsibilities? Or is the promotion a thank you and recognition for what you have done or for the role ahead, right? And there's not a clear answer to this. Now, as an individual, especially from large organizations, right? That's where your happiness and your pride comes from. I have been recognized by one of the world's largest banks to be capable enough to be a managing director. That's a really nice feeling, right? Because that's the corporate endorsing
Right.
So again, there's so many different aspects. It depends.
Right. I see. So because in different banks, different department, different roles, like you said, is it about being promoted in that same role or being promoted to a bigger role or being promoted, as a gratitude? So then you never know. You never know which is the one that would be prioritized at that point in time.
So look, every bank will have a framework, right? I'm guessing every firm will have a framework. Yeah. And you do need to tick the boxes, right, to become part of the circle that will be chosen.
Right.
And it's very, very important that a bank does this consistently, because this is where a lot of the ill feelings of staff actually have their roots. They don't understand it. They think it's a black box. And actually it's not. And I've had many conversations with my direct reports over the years, how important it is to be fully transparent and open. First and foremost, what is the criteria? How does the evaluation process actually take place? How important is the non-financial performance? Yeah. Then also from function to function, there are rightly so different parameters. Yes, as a single RM, most of it has to be around customer satisfaction, the way that you grow the book. If you are in a more, let's say, support, operations, it's about your ability to manage a large number of people across a large number of topics. So you will have different criteria, but what is then important that those criteria are properly and transparently explained. And then most banks have rating systems, right? And because sometimes feedback sessions are not always comfortable, right? Especially if it's not such a favorable one, right? A lot of leaders make the mistake by saying, oh, don't worry too much. This is HR stuff. You're doing a good job. And then when asked, well, what do I need to do to improve? Very seldom do you actually get, because nobody really likes giving bad news. Worst case, right? Yes, I did put you up. Oh, but, well, why? Can you explain? What do I need to do to stand a better chance next year? And so a lot of middle managers actually don't do a great job there. And the basis for that, and maybe that is what has carried me for all these years, genuinely care for the people that you're responsible for. Genuinely be interested in them as an individual and their careers. But also have the courage to tell them, if that is the case, that they're on the wrong path, that they are doing the wrong things and how they need to adjust and correct. I always use the same example to express this. I wake up tomorrow morning and say, I want to be the president of Singapore. I would like you to tell me, Philip, that's a fantastic idea, very ambitious, but sorry, it's not going to happen because you're not Singaporean, you were not born here. And then most leaders actually stop, which is exactly wrong, because from there onwards, I now need your advice. Philip, it's a wonderful idea. It's not going to happen. However, have you thought of A, B, C, and D? And actually, I can help you. I can connect you with such and such, or in order to fulfill this requirement, you should do this in this course. And I think this is where often these ill feelings around promotions and pay actually have their origin, because they're not well explained.
I think what really stood out for me is that to actually increase your chances of promotion, both the line manager and the employee has to know very well the rules of the game. Because like you said, people most of the time think that there is actually a black box. But actually, a lot of the times there is a checklist, a list of requirements that actually are the basic requirements that you need to have in order to even make it to that minimum requirement for the promotion, right?
Yes.
So that's very interesting. And yeah, like you said, that's where the source of frustration comes from, right? What about pay increases? Are those the same considerations as well?
Yes, it has to be based on deliverables, right? Look, I can't blame the individuals within our industry, because basically as a collective, we have created this together. The expectations of always more. And often you get the feeling people want more without actually having done more. Right? Like an entitlement.
I get it.
Now, one reality in the private banking scene, in particular here in Singapore, the talent pool has remained very shallow. We don't create enough new talent. And so therefore everybody's chasing, and automatically I change job and I expect 40% pay increase. And then some situations as well. You just told me you're only going to bring me 50% of your book, but you actually want 30% pay increase. It doesn't seem to be a fair equation, right? But in our quest of ever greater market share, we actually push up this pay spiral. And cost has become a serious issue in the industry. And how sustainable is it?
Interesting.
And then you have the perpetual question is, well, do I pay for performance? Do I pay for management? Do I have a hybrid for it? Depending where the firm is in its evolution, different elements will impact this as well. And if you had been too generous in the past and the numbers don't come through, there has to be a counter reaction, right?
Yeah.
So if I hire too many, right, in the hope to increase my market share, for whatever reason, they can't perform, I still have the same cost base. And so there's so many things that influence this. Also, what a lot of people struggle with, if you are, let's say, on a universal banking platform, you have all these different divisions. And the number one result that you should look at is how does it look like on a group level, right? You may have had a fantastic year in your division, but other divisions may have had lesser. So you're part of a family, right? And as is correct in family and family values, if a brother or sister struggles, you help. That means your bonus pool is shared, right, across others. Sometimes you actually then also benefit from it. You may not have had. So that is in particular true if you have multi-divisional firms and setups. Slightly lesser if it's a pure play, right? It's only that. I've also had the privilege to experience that, a teeny tiny little boutique, right? And the dynamics are very, very different there.
I want to go back to a topic that we just lightly touched on earlier. It is something that many people talk about behind closed doors, but don't actually talk about in public, politics. I know you mentioned earlier that, you know, you don't have to play politics, be authentic. But it is very much a lot of what people believe they need to do to play to actually rise to the top of big organizations like banks. In your view, what actually is politics in a corporate context?
That's a tough question. Politics very often, right, have no other purpose but self-interest. How can I portray something that actually ultimately brings me an advantage? For me, that's maybe the definition of playing politics. And you see that way beyond banks and firms as well, right? And that's a bad part about it. You know, politics, you take Switzerland, right? Being a democratic political system is a beautiful thing where everybody has a voice and But then also politics can be misused. Right? And that's when they get ugly. So I don't think I've got a simple answer what it really is. But behind closed doors, right? As you said, mostly that is where it's not good politics. It's driven by self-interest and how can I position this as the most favorable outcome falls my way.
I get it.
And that's what I detest. I really don't like.
I get it. Let's talk a little bit about that reality of bad politics. Because, you know, I've worked also, you know, with a large bank and sometimes many people in different organizations. The funny thing or not so funny thing about politics is that when it goes your way, nothing you do is wrong. But when it doesn't go your way, anything you do, no matter how great, is wrong. In the event that politics or perception doesn't go your way in a company, in a team, how does someone actually make it better? How do you actually reverse the direction of the perception?
Very complex and multidimensional question that you have here. Bad politics will carry you or will be good for you until they're no longer good for you. If it's not built on sincerity, on facts, on honesty, in fairness, that benefit will be short-lived. And I've seen it many, many times, right? People putting out their elbows, playing these ugly politics, putting other people down. Quite often, within a year or two, that person is no longer there because people see through it. Now, nobody in life or business always wins. And I think that's also part and parcel of growing up, of becoming a more and more senior leader to accept that you will not always get it your way, right? Yeah. And you can't throw your dummy out of the pram just because you don't get what you want. Often when I was in a situation like this, and I'm the first to say I didn't always win, why didn't I? What could I or should I have done differently or better to get people on my side of the argument, right? That's where it should start, rather than saying, oh, this is unfair and blame everyone else. So I think that's a very good starting point. How can I change then the perception? More generally, we all make mistakes. We all have setbacks. For me, very important, how do you recover from that? How do I respond to a setback, a mistake, an error? Very, very important, right? It's very easy then to play the blame game, point fingers everywhere else. How do I get up? How do I recover? How fast do I? And I think that is then the basis for the recovery question that you asked for. Because people will have made their minds up. They would have created their own perceptions. And so how do you fight those? For sure, it can't be blaming everyone else.
Yes.
So it has to start with yourself and showing how you put in the effort to overcome and what opportunity, when is the next opportunity where I can represent, right? And get a second chance.
To rechannel the energy from blaming other people towards finding that second chance and ideally changing the perceptions of people one step at a time, right?
Is that not the basis of your very first question, right? How to influence people.
Yes.
Also people in the absence of reporting lines.
Yes.
Most probably that's the hardest piece, right? Something went wrong, something didn't go your way. You couldn't convince whoever the decision makers were and the supporters ahead of it. So how do you go back to that? Similar to, could even be in a sales situation, right? How do you overcome a no, right? How do you say, no, I'm not interested? How do you actually recover from that? And yes, there are certain techniques and there are certain lessons that you can learn, right? How to deal with pushback but I think at the end of the day, what everybody is looking for is the honest response and that people take responsibility and accountability for things not having gone their way or not having gone the right way.
So Philip, we've talked a lot about how to rise, how to get promoted, how to get to the top. Let's talk a little bit about what it takes to stay there, right? Because you've been at the top of many organizations. You know, you have had more and more people under you. Does it get easier or harder?
Certain aspects get easier. Like everything in life, right? You create a certain routine, certain habits. And when you have that, things do seem to be a bit easier, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also gets harder and harder. One thing that I've always taken very, very serious is actually the responsibility that you have in that role and in that function, right? It's no longer just you as a single producer. Also, your decision influence many, many more.
Yeah.
And so the responsibility and accountability for your actions, for your choices. And sometimes it can feel very heavy on your shoulders. Yeah. Very heavy, right? And everybody expects you to be smiling, to be happy and have all the answers. And reality is you don't always have. And yes, you do find yourself often in situations that's very tough to decide. And very few people that you can reach out to.
Yeah.
Whether it's around personnel decisions, as you said, right? Making choices for a promotion. Is it this person over that person? There is this saying, right? It gets quite lonely at the top.
Exactly.
And that's quite true. Ultimately, it's an absolute privilege. I enjoyed every single moment of leadership, but there are periods where it is quite tough. And if you are genuine and authentic, you do care about the outcome of your decisions. And very often it is way beyond just a numerical outcome, right?
Yes.
Imagine the horrible situation where things have not gone for the firm. You need to find ways to cut costs.
Yes.
The biggest torment ever, right?
Yeah.
When you have to actually sit down there and decide which parts do I cut out? Who do I retrench? Being fully aware of the families behind. A piece that I pride myself. I know most families of all my employees, right? Their needs, their struggles. And here you need to take a professional decision that's brutally economic in its nature.
Yeah.
Those are the tough moments. And that never gets easy, Nicole. Never, ever. But then, yes, the moments of joy and happiness where as a team you succeed. That is the biggest reward for a leader, a coach of a football team, or when you actually see as a collective, having achieved our objectives within the framework of our purpose, values, and principles. Those are the greatest moments.
Yeah. I'm sure many people don't see that side of being a senior leader, but how actually difficult it is and challenging when you have to make those tough decisions, because on the surface, they look like it's very economics driven. And on the surface, it looks like, oh, it's so easily done.
Again, here, you can't blame the population, right? This was a spreadsheet exercise.
Yeah.
Maybe some people, some firms have done it that way. I've always made sure that is not, that there's really deep thought into this. And yes, unless you are the chairman, there's always somebody above you that will also be quite instructive as to what the desired outcome is, right? Same thing on the other side of that coin, these big words of vision and strategy.
Yeah.
Especially within the big firms. Your vision and your strategy is within a frame, right?
Yes.
Unlike if you own the company yourself.
Yes.
So look, again here, leadership is a privilege. And I've enjoyed every moment of it. But it does come with a heavy burden of responsibility, accountability for the outcomes. And maybe again there, it is so important beyond your PowerPoint presentations of your vision and your strategy to get people behind you, right? That they find comfort that you are leading them in the right direction. And they do understand that from time to time you have to make tough decisions. And then being nice. That's not where being nice comes into it. It's being fair, being objective. Right?
Yeah.
Being holistic in the way that you approach this.
Yes.
All these wonderful words of jargon that we have, it's not always that easy.
Yes.
But ultimately rewarding.
Understand. So that in those tough moments, your team knows that even when it's challenging, you would make the best decision, and that you would have considered a great deal before anything's done.
I hope that is the legacy that I will leave behind. Nobody's going to remember your record performance years, right? Your net, your money, your whatever we measure. Nearly on a year-on-year basis, they're already forgotten.
Yes.
And if not by your team, by your bosses.
Yeah, exactly.
And they want more and more. I would like to be remembered in years to come. Philip was a people's person. He did genuinely, authentically care for us. And he demonstrated it in regular conversations with us, either as a collective or one-on-one, where he did show me the way. And in the 4.5 decades so far, I'm really blessed to have made so many friends, way beyond the different banks that I've worked for, still in touch, still as friends, still reaching out for continued advice. And hopefully that's a small little proof point that maybe one or two things I did right.
I love that. And thank you for saying that as well. Because I think a lot of people misunderstand whether it's you or people who are senior leaders in terms of the person that they are behind the title and behind the position that they have. If there was one thing you wish more people knew about you, what would that be?
Before I answer that, right, the biggest and the most important commodity, the further you go, actually does become time. Because what I just spoke about does need time. You need to purposely carve out time. Because if you let the agenda drive this, I will never have a minute in the day to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right? So it has to be a very conscious decision. And again, this is what I want to be remembered for. I hope not so soon. There should be a few more years in it. And I will continue to try my very best to live alongside those values. I've been very blessed, extremely privileged. Not everybody actually knows the long path that I embarked on back in 1982 as an apprentice, a person who didn't have the privilege of attending university. A lot of people are shocked when I say this for the first time. There are no academic achievements in my career. It was all self-taught, all hard work,
yes,
genuine work. But it's also a proof point, right? That your career can progress in many, many different ways.
yes.
And maybe the encouragement to, especially the very young people, right? If it doesn't work out quite the way that you think first time round, or that you didn't have the opportunity that A, B, and C had, that doesn't mean that the rest of your life is limited. And therefore, yes, you do have to work hard, consistently and honestly, right? So a lot of people don't know that, right?
Yes.
I'm quite proud of that myself,
Exactly.
right? Having gone through every single step, proving myself over and over again on the back of merits, the way that I do things, the way I engage with people. And yes, if I could change one thing, right, is give myself more time for more such conversations.
Oh, yeah, no. And you realize like what's more important in life as you go through different things as well, right? You know, I'm sure you have had many experiences and lessons as well. You know, Philip, you spent your whole career, 40 years, helping businesses grow, helping people grow. What is one thing that has helped you grow and why?
I think there's one very simple word: passion. I really love what we do. It's an absolute privilege what we do, right? We get paid very well for what we do. Having been on these different platforms, seen different geographies, whether that was Zurich, London, later on here, the parts, the people that we get to interact with within the firm, I've met such amazing individuals on this end. But most probably, ultimately, and that passion and that fire is as strong as it was on day one, the engagement with clients. And these clients are from all walks of life, captains of industry, influencers, hugely successful, right?
Yeah.
And the very humbling piece, and maybe that's where I kept my feet always firmly on the ground. They come to you and ask you for advice, right? Mostly around their financial affairs, but not limited there too. It's about family, it's about the companies, etc., etc. And I remember very clearly asking myself this question. I think I was barely 20, 22 years old. The CEO of another bank opened up an account and asked me for investment advice. I said, why on earth would he do that, right? And so you have these wonderful moments, but ultimately, in response to your question, it's an absolute privilege to have had the life and the career with all the ups and downs, and I would do it all over again. And then, Nicole, put it into context. For one of these very large banks, it doesn't matter which one, in Singapore, in this type of business, it surely must be fascinating. It surely must be so rewarding. But yes, to do it consistently and right, you do need to have that passion. Not every day was a sunny day.
Yes.
And dark days are very dark, right? And so you do need to have that one thing that continuously carries you and spurs you on. And for me, it was the passion and the love for what we do.
Philip, if there was one or two traits that you've noticed in senior leaders or successful people, what would those traits be that have actually brought them to those positions?
I've seen so many different types, right? Good ones, bad ones, ugly ones. But the majority of them you do look up to with respect, the way that they actually carried themselves. And it's a red thread throughout our entire conversation, right? It is the ones that impress you most, you admire the most, are exactly those who exhibited that honest, genuine authenticity, right? Being fair and where needed, compassionate, but also have the courage to drive, to push where that is needed. Sometimes it's pull, sometimes it's push. Very impressive people, the seniors, most senior level, creating an environment where everybody feels that they can contribute, that their opinion matters. The ones who set the tone in those meetings, right? And make sure it's not always the loudest who gets to talk, that you create platforms for also the quiet ones, right, to express themselves. And so, yes, I've seen a lot of good examples. Unfortunately, a few bad ones. Maybe the smile back on my face is right always wins, Nicole. Okay. It's a deep, deep belief of mine. It sometimes doesn't win straight away. It takes a little while for it then to come right.
I love that. Yeah.
Right always wins.
Final question, Philip. When you think of the phrase, you never know, what does it mean to you?
There were many, many situations where I didn't know, right? No clue what the future may hold. But that's okay. I think part and parcel of living and is the unknown and the excitement, maybe also the focus. One wonderful saying that we have here in Singapore, right? I can't predict, nor can I cater for everything in the future. But I can do everything to position myself for the different eventualities. And I think that applies to us as individuals as well. You don't know, from private life to walking out of the studio today, right?
Yes.
But prepare yourself that if worse is to happen, that you can respond and recover and move on.
Thank you very much, Philip. This is a very heartwarming, actually, and insightful conversation about leadership, about rising in large organizations, and about your biggest lessons in senior leadership as well. So thank you very much, Philip, for your time and your sharing today.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
If this episode resonates with you, I would love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it today.